My name is Emily Silva. For the rail trail, I've designed an interactive public light installation. Okay, so I have to give major credit to my partner, Andrew, who has given up almost all of his nights and weekends for the past 10 weeks to help me complete 4 commissions that came in during this time. And so here it is. Here's one of the big ones that is going out on Monday. So first, what Cora, part of my studio's name, Studio Cora, refers to is directly to space, but it's also very indirectly to space. It stems from the beginnings of Western society at a time not welcoming for the Cora. So the Cora is very much about inclusion. And so I have a little bit of a joke of Plato and Socrates, shh, don't talk about the Cora. And so very quickly, a brief history. So Derrida really brought the Cora as much more of a theme into philosophy in the late 1960s. This was a major proponent of deconstructivism. Deconstructivism was very quickly put into the hands of Bernard Tschumi, a French architect, and then later Peter Eisman. And it's something that I think in architecture I would, by the way, my background's in architecture. So I have an undergraduate and graduate degree in architecture. So that's kind of a trickle of where this starts off. Let's see, but it's something that I would argue architecture has never actually left. In the 1970s, structuralism in art, so parallel to this movement was really reversing hierarchy by disengaging structures of oppositions. And one of my favorite pieces of architecture down here at the bottom, this is by Jennifer Bloomer. It's part of the mop-up work. It was stemming from the early 1990s. It identified structures of oppression. It looked very much at what it feels like to be a woman. And so this is a corset, the tightness of a corset. She had many pieces that reference back to this about anorexia. And what was interesting about this work of architecture, it was done by an architect. She had a professional degree. She was a professor. She had a license. It was never in my studies in undergraduate brought up as a piece of architecture. It wasn't until my first year in graduate school that I even found the mop-up work. And so I had, almost 6 courses of history and never once did this come up. And in my own work, so this was a project that I did at the end of graduate school. It was a project that my mentor, Nora Wendell, helped me on. And so this was a 1-credit course. It could not be my final studio, which was 6 credits. So it was done in parallel with that. And it was designed in a context, the US context of sort of a polarizing environment. It was entirely about communication. And I am recognizing that I'm not on the screen either. And it was almost entirely about communication. So at sort of a short point, it was an intimate dinner party. Very tough questions were brought about. This was entirely a dinner of strangers. It could very easily have been a dinner where your reflection is sort of presented on the walls of this, and you could have kind of spoke and told your truth to everyone. But really, it was 100% about listening. And so the other part of what you're not seeing in this is Mylar, emergency camping blanket, turns completely transparent. So there's light on the inside and all that you see on the inside is mirror, but on the outside, there were groups of people that were listening in. And there was never once anyone sort of like lashing out or getting out of there. It was like very clear that despite how polarizing the country is or is, communication is like, we are actually all on the same page, most people. And ironically, my first job out of graduate school was I was on a team of designers designing the exterior lighting for One Wall Street in the financial district of New York City. So this was a building, or this was a project that would really place One Wall Street as part of like the skyline in New York City. It reflected the robustness of the US economy, the stability of New York City, and the extreme wealth of a few people. And so this was my personal work that I was doing at the same time. And it was really no longer a reflection of the world. It was much more an examination of myself and what I felt in my body. And so I have a couple of others. By this time, I had moved to New Mexico, or moved back to New Mexico. And these were sort of like nodes of starting to reach out to other people and recognizing some of the same things. This one I'm sort of ending with because it has, so the entire frame, this is very much of like Fuse Makerspace, is the entire base is sort of CNC'd, and it's similar to what I'm presenting as light bodies for the rail trail. So the rail trail has these like biological forms or corporal bodies that are sharing and passing light from one to the next. And that is at the top. There are these motion sensing lights that move as like children start to play. It's also a safety feature for if you're walking alone at night, you can see the movement of somebody that was there before you, or it's highlighting someone that's already there. And I am going to play the video. Are you guys? Okay. So this sort of self-pulsing goes throughout the time that the picture is always on. And then it'll start to play the next movement as well. So there are these LEDs that sense motion and light from above, and then slowly dim as movement is no longer detected. So this is something that starts to animate the space. It maybe promotes play with kids playing hopscotch on the decal that's on the floor or on the ground. That was a rapid dim, like big dim.
No.
One more bag? Your advantage status.
Sorry about that. Okay, and so here's the concept drawing of the interactive round mural, where these nodes would start to promote play. I think kids would recognize that as they step on each node, the light above highlights them. Let's see, I used a PWM pulse width modulation to connect 12 LEDs. This could increase to 16 or even further than that. Let's see. So at the top of this, I have a LiDAR sensor, which is detecting movement. This would also count the number of passerbys, and something that maybe the city could use to promote walkability or to promote like alternative modes of going to work every day. Yeah. Okay, so I have the pixel wave. And I have to say, so one of the challenges that I had with this, so I have just the one LiDAR sensor at the top of the sculpture in the full scale. So there's two different ways that we discussed doing it, is it would really be having multiple ultrasonic sensors or LiDAR sensors that sort of triangulate, and then it would break it up into a grid that segments where people are so that it knows which LED or which node the person is under. At the moment, this one, of course, you have blockage. And so it detects in like full segments, but it doesn't go to individuals. Or an alternative to that would be at each LED, there's an ultrasonic, and it faces directly downwards so that any movement within that node would like right away get sensed. And I don't know if anyone, this is sort of bothersome. So these are 2700 Kelvin. Using different NeoPixel strips, we have a little pink and we have a little orange. The future one will use exactly the same NeoPixel, so that may just be a me issue, but all the same color throughout. Okay, and then these other forms are just representative of what would be multiple of these sort of fixtures that hang above. And this is the end of my presentation. Of course, I have to say, like everyone else, like EJ and Brian have been extremely helpful. And these things, I am very far from an expert, but they have immediate applications in my own products. And I think something that give me a couple months, no commissions, I will come back to you guys, I think, with a lot more skills. Okay.